My brother made fun of my stupid invention. He didn't know it just made me a billionaire. Those words echoed in my mind like an anthem, a mantra that kept me going when the world seemed determined to push me down. I could still hear his laughter, sharp and cutting, ringing through the small garage where I had spent countless hours tinkering with wires, circuits, and scraps of metal. It wasn't supposed to be this way, not the ridicule, not the doubt, and certainly not the success. But life has a funny way of twisting things around until you can't tell which end is up. It all started on a rainy afternoon, one of those days where the sky looks like it's been painted over with ash. The rain drummed against the roof of our old house, a steady rhythm that matched the beating of my heart as I stared at the mess spread out before me. My workspace was chaotic, a jumble of tools, half-finished projects, and notebooks filled with scribbled ideas that only I could decipher. To anyone else, it probably looked like a disaster zone, but to me, it was home. This was where I felt alive, where my thoughts took shape and turned into something tangible. I had always been different from my older brother, Ethan. Where he thrived in sports and popularity, I found solace in solitude and creation. We were polar opposites, yet we shared the same blood, and somehow, that connection only seemed to amplify the tension between us. Ethan never understood why I spent so much time playing with junk, as he called it. To him, my inventions were childish hobbies, distractions from what he considered real ambitions, getting good grades, making the football team, and eventually landing some high-paying corporate job. He couldn't fathom why I would waste my time building gadgets that no one asked for or needed. That day, however, I thought I had finally created something worthwhile. It wasn't anything flashy or glamorous, just a small device designed to help people find misplaced items using GPS technology. I called it the locator band, a simple bracelet embedded with a tiny chip that could sync with your phone. If you lost your keys, wallet, or even your pet, the locator band would guide you straight to them. It sounded practical, useful, maybe even groundbreaking. At least, that's what I believed. When Ethan walked into the garage, his sneakers squeaking on the wet floor, I was soldering the final connections on the prototype. His presence immediately filled the space, loud and intrusive, like a storm cloud rolling in. He leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed, his signature smirk plastered across his face. "What's this?" he asked, nodding toward the cluttered table. His tone was teasing, already laced with mockery before I even opened my mouth. It's kind of hard to explain," I stammered, suddenly self-conscious under his gaze. I held up the bracelet, its sleek design gleaming faintly in the dim light. "It's called the locator band. You wear it, and if you lose something, it helps you find it." Ethan raised an eyebrow, his smirk widening. "You're kidding, right? A bracelet that finds stuff? That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard." He let out a bark of laughter, throwing his head back for emphasis. "Do you really think anyone cares about finding their socks faster? Or are you just trying to impress Mom again?" His words hit me like a punch to the gut, but I forced myself to laugh along, pretending they didn't sting. Deep down though, I knew he was wrong, or at least I hoped he was. Because if he wasn't, then everything I had poured into this project, the late nights, the sacrifices, the endless trial and error, would have been for nothing. The truth was, I had always struggled with self-doubt. For every moment of triumph, there were 10 moments of failure, each one chipping away at my confidence. But I couldn't stop. Creating things was who I was, it was how I made sense of the world. And despite Ethan's skepticism, I truly believed in the potential of the locator band. I envisioned a future where people relied on it daily, where it became as essential as a smartphone or a watch. I dreamed of seeing my name associated with innovation, of being recognized for something meaningful. But dreams don't pay the bills, as my parents often reminded me. Our family wasn't wealthy by any stretch of the imagination. Money was tight, and every penny counted. While Ethan worked part-time jobs to contribute to the household, I stayed holed up in the garage, chasing ideas that seemed more like fantasies than realities. It didn't help that I was constantly compared to him, his achievements celebrated, mine dismissed as frivolous hobbies. The pressure to prove myself weighed heavily on my shoulders, but I refused to give up. After Ethan left the garage that day, leaving behind a trail of snarky comments and condescending remarks, I sat alone with my thoughts. The rain outside had intensified, pounding against the windows like 1,000 tiny fists. I stared at the locator band, now lying dormant on the workbench, and wondered if I was wasting my time. Was Ethan right? Was this whole endeavor pointless? Then I remembered something my dad used to say: if you build something that solves a problem, someone will want it. Simple advice, but it carried weight. People did lose things all the time. It happened to everyone. Maybe the locator band wasn't perfect, but it addressed a universal issue. And if I could refine it, improve it, maybe it could become something extraordinary. With renewed determination, I threw myself into improving the prototype. I spent weeks fine-tuning the software, testing the hardware, and tweaking every detail until it worked flawlessly. I reached out to friends and classmates, asking them to try it out and provide feedback. Most of them were skeptical at first, but once they saw how effective it was, their attitudes changed. They started suggesting improvements, sharing stories about times they wished they'd had something like the locator band. Their enthusiasm fueled me, pushing me to keep going even when the challenges felt insurmountable. Eventually, I decided to take the next step, entering the locator band in a local tech competition. It was a long shot, I knew that, but I figured it was worth a try. The night before the event, I barely slept, my nerves buzzing like live wires. What if no one liked it? What if I embarrassed myself in front of judges and competitors who were far more experienced than I was? These questions swirled in my mind, keeping me awake until dawn. The competition was held in a large auditorium packed with students, teachers, and industry professionals. Rows of tables displayed various inventions, ranging from robots to apps to sustainable energy solutions. Compared to some of the other entries, the locator band seemed almost quaint. As I set up my booth, I couldn't shake the feeling that I didn't belong here, that I was out of my depth. But then something unexpected happened. People started stopping by my table, curious about the unassuming bracelet. At first, they were hesitant, unsure of what to make of it. But once I demonstrated how it worked, their skepticism melted away. They oohed and awed, peppering me with questions about its capabilities and potential applications. By the end of the day, my booth was one of the busiest in the room. When the judges announced the winners, I didn't expect to hear my name. So when they called out Locator Band as the first place winner, I nearly fell out of my chair. Shock rippled through the crowd, followed by applause. Cameras flashed, reporters shoved microphones in my face, and strangers congratulated me on my achievement. For the first time in my life, I felt seen, not as the weird girl who played with wires, but as someone capable of creating something valuable. News of my victory spread quickly, thanks in part to social media. Within days, articles about the Locator Band appeared online, praising its ingenuity and practicality. Investors began reaching out, eager to discuss partnerships and funding opportunities. Companies offered to buy the rights outright, promising sums of money that made my head spin. Suddenly, I was thrust into a world I had never imagined for myself, a world of boardrooms, contracts, and multimillion-dollar deals. Through it all, Ethan remained conspicuously silent. When I returned home after the competition, trophy in hand, he avoided looking at me. Dinner was awkward, the air thick with unspoken tension. Finally, unable to bear the silence any longer, I confronted him. "Why do you hate my inventions so much?" I demanded, my voice trembling with emotion. "Why do you always have to tear me down?" He hesitated, caught off guard by my directness. Then, after a long pause, he muttered, "I don't hate them. I don't get them, okay? All this tech stuff, it's not normal. You're supposed to focus on real goals, not waste your time on stupid gadgets." His words hurt, but they also sparked something inside me. Anger, yes, but also resolve. If Ethan couldn't understand my passion, that was his problem, not mine. I had proven myself, not just to him but to the entire world. And I wasn't about to let anyone, least of all my own brother, diminish what I had accomplished. As months turned into years, the Locator Band evolved from a humble prototype into a global phenomenon. Sales skyrocketed, demand soared, and my company grew faster than I ever thought possible. I hired teams of engineers, designers, and marketers, expanding the product line to include new features and accessories. The media dubbed me a tech prodigy, a title I both embraced and rejected. Yes, I had achieved incredible success, but I hadn't done it alone. Behind every milestone was a network of support, friends, mentors, and collaborators who believed in me when others didn't. Despite my rising fame, I tried to stay grounded. I visited schools, giving talks to inspire young inventors and entrepreneurs. I donated portions of my profits to STEM programs, hoping to create opportunities for kids who might otherwise feel discouraged. Success, I realized, wasn't just about personal gain. It was about lifting others up, paving the way for future generations to dream bigger and bolder. Yet, amidst all the accolades and achievements, there was still one relationship I couldn't fix: my bond with Ethan. Though he occasionally reached out, his messages were brief and impersonal, lacking the warmth of genuine connection. Part of me wanted to forgive him, to move past the years of criticism and neglect. But another part held back, wary of reopening old wounds. One evening, as I sat in my office overlooking the city skyline, I received an email from Ethan. The subject line read simply, "Can we talk?" My stomach churned as I clicked it open. Inside was a short message, written in his usual blunt style. "Hey sis. I know I haven't been the best brother. Maybe I judged you too harshly back then. Just wanted to say, I'm proud of you. Really. Let's catch up soon. Ethan." Tears pricked my eyes as I read his words. Pride, relief, and sadness mingled within me, forming a complex tapestry of emotions. Perhaps Ethan didn't fully grasp the depth of his impact on me, but his admission meant something. It signaled a willingness to bridge the gap between us, to start anew. And so, with a mixture of hope and trepidation, I replied, "Let's talk. There's a lot to catch up on." Little did I know, this conversation would mark the beginning of a new chapter, one that would challenge everything I thought I knew about forgiveness, family, and the true meaning of success. The coffee shop where we agreed to meet was bustling with the hum of conversation and the hiss of the espresso machine. It wasn't a place either of us frequented, too trendy for Ethan's taste, too mainstream for mine, but it felt neutral, safe. Neither of us had ventured into this territory before, an honest conversation about the years of tension, resentment, and misunderstanding that had built a wall between us. When I arrived, Ethan was already there, sitting at a corner table with a cup of black coffee in front of him. He looked up as I approached, his expression unreadable. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The air between us crackled with unspoken words, like static electricity waiting to discharge. "Hey," I said finally, sliding into the seat across from him. My voice sounded strange to my own ears, tentative, unsure. "Hey," he replied, mirroring my tone. His eyes flicked to the window beside us, then back to me. "Thanks for coming." I nodded, folding my hands on the table to steady them. "You said you wanted to talk." He exhaled sharply, running a hand through his hair. "Yeah, I did. Look, I don't know where to start. I guess I just wanted to say I'm sorry. For everything." His apology hung in the air, raw and unexpected. I hadn't anticipated this level of vulnerability from him. Growing up, Ethan had always been the strong one, the confident, unshakable older brother who never admitted weakness. Seeing him now, stripped of his usual bravado, made something inside me soften. "You've said sorry before," I pointed out gently. "But saying it isn't enough if nothing changes." "I know," he admitted, his gaze dropping to the table. "And I get that. Trust me, I do. But I want to try. I want to understand why I acted the way I did, and why you kept going even when I gave you every reason to stop." His honesty caught me off guard. For so long, I had carried the weight of our fractured relationship alone, replaying memories of his dismissive comments and mocking laughter. But here he was, acknowledging the pain he had caused, not excusing it, but owning it. It was a start. "I didn't keep going because of you," I told him, my voice firm yet calm. "I kept going because of me. Because creating things makes me happy. Because solving problems feels like breathing to me. You can't take credit for that, Ethan. And you can't blame yourself for it either." He nodded slowly, absorbing my words. "I guess I always thought I knew what was best for you. That football games and college parties were more important than whatever you were doing in the garage. I thought I was protecting you from wasting your time on something no one cared about." "But you were wrong," I finished for him. "Yeah," he said with a wry smile. "Turns out you're pretty hard to protect." That made me laugh, a small hesitant sound that broke some of the tension between us. For the first time in years, it felt like we were truly seeing each other, not as rivals or opposites, but as two people trying to navigate life in their own ways. We talked for hours that day, unraveling old wounds and confronting truths we'd both avoided. Ethan confessed that part of his hostility toward my inventions stemmed from jealousy. he admired my ability to dream big and follow through, something he struggled to do himself. He admitted feeling overshadowed by my success, even though he had never outwardly acknowledged it. In turn, I shared how his constant criticism had planted seeds of doubt in my mind, making me question whether I was good enough or smart enough to succeed. By the time we left the coffee shop, the sun had dipped below the horizon, casting the streets in shades of orange and purple. We walked together in silence for a while, the kind of comfortable quiet that comes after laying bare your soul to someone else. "You know," Ethan said eventually, breaking the stillness, "you really are amazing, sis. Even if I was too blind to see it before." "Thank you," I replied softly, feeling a lump rise in my throat. "That means a lot." As we parted ways that night, I realized something profound. Forgiveness wasn't about forgetting the past or pretending it didn't happen. It was about choosing to move forward despite it. It was about recognizing that people grow, change, and evolve, and giving them the space to do so. Over the next few months, Ethan and I worked to rebuild our relationship. It wasn't easy. Old habits die hard, and there were moments when frustration bubbled to the surface. But we persisted, determined to create something stronger than what we'd lost. One afternoon, as I sat in my office reviewing designs for the latest version of the locator band, Ethan appeared in the doorway. He looked out of place among the sleek furniture and high-tech gadgets, his worn jeans and scuffed boots contrasting sharply with the polished surroundings. "What are you doing here?" I asked, surprised but pleased to see him. "I brought you lunch," he said, holding up a brown paper bag. "Figured you could use a break." I smiled, gesturing for him to come in. As we ate together, he glanced around the room, taking in the framed awards, the prototypes scattered across shelves, and the whiteboard covered in sketches and equations. "This is incredible," he said after a while. "I mean, I knew you were successful, but seeing it all laid out like this, it's overwhelming." "It's not just mine," I reminded him. "A lot of people helped make this happen." "I know," he said, nodding. "But it started with you. With your idea. Your vision." His words warmed me, filling a void I hadn't realized was still empty. For so long, I had craved validation from Ethan, not just as a sibling, but as someone who understood the depth of my passion. Hearing him acknowledge it now felt like closure. As the weeks turned into months, Ethan became a regular presence in my life. He attended product launches, offered feedback on marketing strategies, and even pitched in during brainstorming sessions. At first, I worried that his involvement might complicate things, that lingering resentment or competition would resurface. But instead, it brought us closer. Working side by side allowed us to appreciate each other's strengths, to see the value in our differences rather than letting them divide us. One evening, as we wrapped up a particularly productive meeting, Ethan leaned back in his chair and sighed contentedly. "You know," he mused, "I used to think success meant having a fancy title or a big paycheck. But watching you, I think it's about doing what you love, no matter what anyone else says." I smiled, touched by his insight. It took me a long time to figure that out. And honestly, I couldn't have done it without you, even if you didn't mean to help. He chuckled, shaking his head. "Well, maybe I should start getting paid for being such a great muse." "Don't push your luck," I teased, tossing a pen at him. For the first time in years, I felt truly at peace. My journey, from the ridicule of my brother to becoming a billionaire inventor, had been fraught with challenges, heartache, and triumphs. But none of it would have mattered if I hadn't found a way to mend the most important relationship in my life. And yet, as I looked ahead, I knew this wasn't the end of the story. There were still new inventions to create, new obstacles to overcome, and new dreams to chase. Life, after all, is a series of beginnings, not endings. With Ethan by my side, I felt ready for whatever came next.